So this ideology of extreme inequality is not good for us, and it has increased under the current government. If you look at the figures, inequality is now higher than it was in May 1997, when most of us thought it had already reached an unsustainable peak. There have been some things done for people close to the bottom, but the people at the top have shot off into the stratosphere. It is incredible that you can live in London today, you can earn millions of pounds, and you can declare yourself non-domiciled, and you can pay no tax at all. You can contribute nothing to British society. That has happened after 12 years of a Labour government. That's an astonishing fact. And that level of inequality has risen. And partly it's funded by a whole culture, a whole political media culture. If you look at the way we talk about class war, I think this is really interesting, right? Labour's policies have allowed the rich to shoot, the super rich to shoot off into a superclass. The Conservative policies will go even further. One of David Cameron's top priorities is to give a tax cut to the richest 3,000 estates in Britain, who happen to be all people he knows. That's not called class war. No one ever calls that class war. But if any of us criticise it, and say, you know, maybe we shouldn't have this huge redistribution of wealth to people at the top, we will be called class warriors. That shows you a huge amount about the assumptions that underline our political discussion. Giving everything to rich people, that's natural, that's how it should be. Criticising that, oh, you're a dangerous class warrior. There's something really disturbing about that. I think also this affects the debate about global warming in a way that is totally relevant. Global warming, as everyone here knows, is the great crisis of our time, and one of the things I've been doing over the last few years, going to various places to report on where the effects are already being dramatically felt. So, you know, I went to Bangladesh, and it's really disturbing. You can stand, you know, at the edge of the coast in Bangladesh, and people will point to the middle of the sea, and they'll say, oh, do you see that little chimney sticking up? That's where my house used to be. And you say, oh, right, when did you leave? And they'll say, 6 months ago. You know, you go 100 miles inland in Bangladesh, and the salt water is rising so rapidly below the ground that all the trees have died, they can't grow rice anymore, that the people are getting sick, the animals are getting sick. Then, you know, totally other place in the world, you go to Darfur, you know, I went to the edges of Darfur, you talk to the refugees, and they say very clearly, well, we started to kill each other because the water dried up. And when you don't have water, you fight for it. You know, or I was just last summer in the Arctic. You know, you talk to the Inuit there, the retreat of the Arctic sea ice is happening so fast. Since the year I was born, 1979, 40% of the summer sea ice is gone. And at the current rate, I will live very easily to see the day when the North Pole is a point in the open ocean that we can all sail to. This is a huge crisis. And it intersects with the issues we're talking about inequality in, I think, crucial ways. The first one is, the primary obstacle to stopping us dealing with this crisis is that there is a small clique at the top who benefit massively from continuing to burn fossil fuels. They are the oil and gas industry, and of course they're funding this ludicrous wave of denial, like they funded every previous wave of denial, like the tobacco industry to protect its profits, told people for 50 years smoking didn't cause lung cancer. And that group has a hugely disproportionate economic power compared to its numbers. Relatively small numbers of people are benefiting and profiting from oil and gas. You know, the leap to sustainable energy infrastructure powered by the wind and the sun and the waves would benefit everyone. It'd be, as Caroline's been arguing for years, a huge source of employment, a huge way of getting us out of the recession. It has to be done here. You have to build wind farms here. This is a huge way to generate jobs. But that small clique that profits from business as usual and burning up all the remaining fossil fuels and pushing the planet beyond the point of no return has huge power because they're at the top. And because we live in a society where people at the top, tiny numbers, speak much louder than the majority population. Also, I think it affects global warming in that, as we were saying about the magic number with growth, we now know that endlessly chasing growth as an end in itself isn't even making us happy. So, you know, we've got to look again at this model, and it should make it easier to do that it's not even like it's working for us. It's not even like we all feel better for having, you know, yet another flat screen television. And the third one, which I think is in a way, in some ways the most important, Jared Diamond wrote a book called Collapse, a brilliant anthropologist, studying societies that have undergone ecological collapse, terrible ecological shocks, like Easter Island, where they cut down all their trees, and virtually everyone died. And what he found is the single biggest factor in whether a society could survive an ecological shock, or just everyone died, or pretty much everyone, was how equal it was. The relatively equal societies where the elite could not insulate themselves from the effects of the shock for long, got through it. You know, it was terrible and there were terrible problems, but they survived. The ones that were so unequal died out because the elite could insulate themselves, they didn't have to deal with the problem, they let it go, they leave it and leave it and leave it, and then by the time you get around, even the elite is affected, it's game over. Now, we are more unequal than the most unequal societies that face this ecological shock, given that we are entering a century where we are going to face ecological shocks, even with the level of warming gases we've now built into the system. This is absolutely urgent. Building environmentalism, an environmental movement and building a movement for greater equality are absolutely inextricably linked. Thank you.